Welcome to Heartbreak Chronicles. The first clues to marital betrayal often appear in the least expected places. For Ethan Prescott, this place is his 9-year-old daughter's pink tablet. It was an ordinary Sunday afternoon, with the Boston winter sunshine lazily pouring in through the floor-to-ceiling windows of the living room. Ethan is helping Sophie with her science homework, a model of planetary motion. Valerie, his wife, tells him she needs to go to the office for an urgent project and may have to work late. This is the third weekend this month that she has missed a family event due to work. "Dad, can I use the tablet to look up pictures of Saturn's rings?" Sophie asked, tilting her little face up. "Sure thing, baby." Ethan smiled and agreed. As Sophie focuses on her model of the planets, a message notification pops up on the tablet. Instinctively, Ethan glanced at the screen, and for that brief moment, his world collapsed. "Missed last night. See you at the hotel next Thursday, same time. Love you, R." 6 years of marriage became so fragile in the face of those 12 words. Ethan felt a wave of vertigo as his fingers unconsciously tapped on the unfamiliar communication app apparently installed by Valerie on purpose on her daughter's infrequently used tablet, not her own phone. Message logs show this has been going on for 3 months. "Dad, what's wrong with you?" Sophie's voice pulled him back to reality. "Nothing. Just remembering something from work." He forced a smile and handed his daughter the tablet. "I'm going to go get you some drinks and snacks, okay?" In the kitchen, Ethan gripped the marble countertop so tightly his knuckles turned white. He tried to calm his breathing and organize the myriad of questions that flooded his mind. Whose are? How long did it last? What made Valerie betray their family? Why? 10 years ago, Ethan and Valerie met at a seminar at the Harvard School of Architecture. At the time, Valerie was pursuing a master's degree in marketing, and Ethan was a graduate in architectural and structural engineering. He was attracted to her warm smile and keen business acumen. She admired his down-to-earth steadiness and focused persistence. They talk about the intersection of urban planning and branding in Cambridge cafes and plan their career dreams while walking along the Charles River. For the first few years of their marriage, everything unfolded perfectly as they had planned. Ethan has steadily risen through the ranks at Thornton and Hammond Construction to become a project supervisor responsible for a number of significant construction projects in the Boston area. Valerie, on the other hand, serves as director of marketing at Novatech Medical Technologies, where her innovative marketing strategies have helped the company gain a foothold in the competitive medical device market. Sophie's birth added new colors and responsibilities to their lives. Ethan remembers how he adjusted his work schedule to make sure he was able to be a part of every important moment in his daughter's development. He and Valerie agreed to take turns adjusting their work schedules until Sophie was in school to make sure that their family didn't get neglected in favor of their careers. It's not a perfect system, but it works well and they run the home together. Or rather, he thought it was co-owned. 2 weeks after discovering that message, Ethan had gathered enough evidence to confirm his suspicions. Instead of vocalizing and questioning, he chose a more dispassionate approach, observing and recording. First of all, he notices subtle changes in Valerie in the last 6 months. A new perfume, more elaborate makeup, mysterious overtime, and business trips. He began to keep an eye on her schedule and noticed regular gaps in time, times when she was neither at the office nor at a friend's party. As a structural engineer, Ethan is accustomed to solving problems through modeling. Now he's building a model of his wife's deception, looking for every illogicality. After confirming that his daughter was not home, he checked the home computer for the family email account that Valerie occasionally used. He didn't crack her personal device, that's what she carried with her, but he found records of suspicious hotel purchases and unusual gift purchases on credit card bills. The most crucial discovery came by chance. Valerie claimed to be traveling to New York for a 3-day marketing conference. And Ethan learned through a friend who worked at Novatech that the company had no such conference scheduled. So he took a day off work and followed Valerie to not the airport, but a secluded boutique hotel in the Back Bay area. Instead of entering, he just sat down at the cafe across the street and waited for 2 hours until he saw a tall man leaving the hotel with Valerie. And they exchanged a hug and kiss that clearly went beyond the boundaries of ordinary friends. The man looked inexplicably familiar. Ethan snapped a blurry photo, and later, through social media searches, he identified the man as Raymond Carver, an internationally recognized photographer and Valerie's college-age ex-boyfriend. It was all taking shape in Ethan's mind like a jigsaw puzzle. He recalls how last fall, Valerie suddenly became interested in photography and attended several photography workshops. At the time, he was so happy that his wife had found a new hobby that he even gave her a professional camera as an anniversary gift. Now that I think about it, those workshops were probably the beginning of the reunion with Raymond. Raymond Carver's Instagram account shows him traveling the world: sunrise in Paris, starry skies in the Sahara, neon in Tokyo. His lens captures not only the landscape, but also a free and uninhibited lifestyle, in contrast to Ethan and Valerie's regular and organized Boston life. Through further investigation, Ethan learns that Raymond was reunited with Valerie when he returned to Boston last September for a solo photography show. The exhibition happened to be part of an art program sponsored by Novatech, in which Valerie was naturally involved as marketing director. The reunion of an old flame, coupled with Valerie's hidden dissatisfaction with the current state of her life, serves as the trigger for the affair. Ethan comes to understand the possible reasons for his wife's infidelity, not because he doesn't love her, not because he neglects his family, but because the repetitiveness and predictability of ordinary life pales in the face of the adventure and change that Raymond represents. This realization did not ease his pain, but deepened his wounds, because it means that no matter how hard he tries to run the marriage, he won't be able to give Valerie what her heart desires. The day the truth came out came sooner than Ethan expected. It was a Thursday night, and Valerie told him she needed to work late and might not be home until late. Sophie is at her friend's house for a birthday party and is going to spend the night there. Ethan sits alone in his living room with all the collected evidence in front of him: hotel bills, photographs, inconsistencies in his itinerary. The sound of the door lock turning interrupted his thoughts. Valerie is back, 2 hours earlier than she said she would be. A flash of surprise flashed across her face when she saw the living room light on and Ethan sitting there waiting for her, then quickly adjusted to a natural smile. "You're still awake?" She put her bag down and came over to him and tried to kiss him on the cheek. Ethan gently avoided it. "Work end early?" he asked calmly. "Well, it went better than expected." Valerie's answers flowed naturally, as if she had practiced countless times. "The rest of the project team had families waiting, so we sped it up." "What a coincidence. Raymond ended early today too." Ethan's tone remained calm, but the content exploded like a bomb in the room. Valerie froze in place, the blood quickly fading from her face. "What are you talking about?" "Raymond Carver, your college-age boyfriend and current lover." Ethan laid the evidence out one by one on the coffee table. "I know this went on for at least 6 months. I know you met at that hotel in Back Bay. And I know that your so-called business trip to New York last month was actually a beach vacation with him in Maine." The room was silent, except for the soft crackling of burning wood in the fireplace. Valerie's lips quivered as if she wanted to deny it, but in the face of overwhelming evidence, she finally chose to confess. "I didn't mean to deceive you, Ethan," she whispered, her voice full of struggle. "It started out as a chance reunion. Then we started talking about the past, about the present, about how boring our marriage is, about how much you regret choosing stability over adventure." Ethan's voice finally wavered, a mixture of pain and anger. "It's not like that," Valerie eagerly argued. "I love our family and I love Sophie. It's just that I feel lost. Every day is the same life, the same responsibilities, the same expectations." When Raymond reappeared, he brought a different perspective that reminded me of the dreams and possibilities of my youth. "So this is about your midlife crisis? It felt like life was too dull, so you decided to add excitement with betrayal?" There was sarcasm in Ethan's voice. "That's not fair, Ethan. I know what I did was wrong, but problems in a marriage are never one-sided." Valerie's tone started to get defensive. "You were always so rational and planned. Sometimes I felt like our life was like a building you designed, solid but lacking in surprises." Ethan took a deep breath, trying to control his emotions. "So your solution is to find another man instead of talking to me about these feelings?" Valerie was silent for a moment, then looked up and straight into Ethan's eyes. "I want a divorce, Ethan." The words hit Ethan like a punch in the chest, and even though he'd sensed the possibility, hearing it in person still choked him. "You're leaving our family for him?" "Leave Sophie." "I'm not leaving Sophie. I'll fight for her custody," Valerie said firmly, and Raymond says he's ready to settle down. He was offered a teaching position at the Art Institute of Boston, which meant he didn't have to travel as much. Together we can offer Sophie a new home. Ethan felt a wave of vertigo and couldn't believe what he was hearing. More than just an affair, Valerie and Raymond have planned a future without him. Did you really think it would be that simple? Ethan sneered. You betray me and then ease into a new life as easily as changing a dress? I know it's difficult, but procrastination will only complicate things. Valerie's voice held a hint of pleading. I've gone to a lawyer who says we can try to handle this as peacefully as possible, considering Sophie's well-being. You've got a lawyer? Ethan repeated, feeling a pang of absurdity. You were ready for a divorce when I didn't even know you were cheating. That's very thoughtful, Valerie. I don't want to hurt you, Ethan, she said softly. It's too late. Ethan stood up, determination in his voice. You've made your choice. Now it's my turn to make mine. Tomorrow you can tell Sophie you're leaving the house. I won't do it for you. As for the divorce, I'll get my own lawyer and don't expect me to make things easy. That night, Ethan slept in the guest room, or tried to. In the darkness, he thought over and over about the betrayal and how it had destroyed everything he held dear. The pain gradually transformed into anger, and the anger molded into a cold determination. He would not let go easily, and he would make all those who betrayed him pay. The next few weeks were a walking nightmare for Ethan. Valerie moves out of the house and stays at what she claims is a friend's house, which Ethan realizes is Raymond. Pursuant to a temporary custody agreement, Sophie alternated between the two, spending 3 days a week with her mother and 4 days a week with her father. What shocked Ethan the most was the reaction of his friends. He had expected everyone to be on the side of the betrayed, but the reality was far more complicated than he had imagined. He and Valerie's mutual friend Miranda Fletcher were the first to take a stand in favor of Valerie. Miranda is a counselor, and Ethan used to think she was the person who best understood marriage ethics and integrity. However, when he pours out his pain and anger to her, Miranda's reaction leaves him feeling secondarily betrayed. Sometimes people find themselves in the wrong relationships, Ethan, Miranda said during their conversation at the Lexington Street Cafe. With a professional calmness in her tone, Valerie told me she had been struggling in her marriage for a long time, feeling tied down and unappreciated. Perhaps this separation is an opportunity for both of you to reflect on what you really want out of life. Wait, Valerie told you she was struggling in her marriage? Ethan asked in shock. When did she tell you? Before she started cheating or after? Miranda averted her eyes in slight embarrassment. It doesn't matter. What matters is dash. Of course it's important. Ethan interrupted her. If she confided in you about marital problems before she cheated, and instead of advising her to communicate with me, you, as our mutual friend, made her feel that cheating was understandable, then you are part of this betrayal. I didn't encourage her to cheat, Ethan. In Miranda's defense, I was just being a friend to support her in making her own choices. Sometimes marriages do come to an end, and people do fall back in love. That's touching. Ethan sneered. I hope your professional ethics are a little stronger than your friendship ethics. Other friends then chimed in. Ethan was saddened by the fact that most of them had chosen a neutral position, which in his view was tantamount to supporting betrayal. Only a few friends, mainly his personal friends rather than the couple's mutual friends, expressed sincere support for him. The most shocking betrayal comes from Connor Davis, Ethan's college roommate and longtime friend. At a separate party, Connor awkwardly admits that he's known about Valerie and Raymond for a long time. I saw them dining intimately at a restaurant on the Charles River about 6 months ago. Connor admitted, unable to look Ethan in the eye. I wasn't sure if I should tell you. Didn't want to jeopardize your marriage without hard evidence. Valerie later assured me that it was just a chance encounter and that she was taking care of it. So you chose to believe a cheating wife instead of warning your friend? There was disbelief in Ethan's voice. I'm sorry, man. I thought things were going to get better. I didn't realize it would turn out like this. Connor argued weakly. The situation became clearer after the divorce proceedings were officially initiated. Valerie's attorney, a prominent woman in Boston divorces, makes an extremely unfavorable offer to Ethan. Primary custody to Valerie and an equitable division of the couple's community property, which means Ethan will have to give up a significant portion of his hard-earned assets. Even more unacceptable, Valerie begins to spread unfavorable comments about Ethan in her circle of friends, implying that he is a control freak and that the main reason for the breakdown of the marriage was his inability to accept her independence and growth. These comments were subtly supported by Miranda and several other neutral friends, making Ethan feel increasingly isolated in social situations. Sophie, the naive 9-year-old girl, is the most innocent victim of this storm. Though Ethan and Valerie both do their best to keep the full extent of the truth from her, smart Sophie can sense the undercurrents of the adult world. She started having nightmares, and her schooling suffered. When she draws an image of a broken family during a drawing activity at school, Ethan feels heartbroken. "Daddy, does mommy not love us anymore?" Sophie asked out of the blue one night after Ethan had read her a bedtime story, tears glistening in her big eyes. "No, honey, mommy will always love you," Ethan replied softly, forcing himself to remain calm. Sometimes the feelings between adults change, but that doesn't mean the love for the child does. Then why is she with Uncle Raymond? Why can't the three of us live together like we used to? Because Ethan paused for a moment, searching for the right words to explain the complexity. Because sometimes people make choices that hurt other people, even when they don't mean to cause harm. What he doesn't tell Sophie is that Raymond has begun to intervene in her life as a father-to-be. According to what Ethan learned from Sophie, Raymond often showed up when she was with Valerie, took her to photography shows, taught her how to use a camera, and ingratiated himself with expensive gifts and promises of outings. This behavior both angers and worries Ethan, who fears that his daughter will fall for this superficial enthusiasm and end up alienating him as a father who truly cares about her well-being. Driven by desperation and anger, Ethan begins to plot his revenge. As a structural engineer, he is accustomed to starting with the basics and building complex systems step by step. So will his vengeance be methodical, precisely calculated, leaving no loopholes. First, he needs more information. Ethan hires a private investigator, not to gather confirmed evidence of cheating, but to delve into the secrets of friends who have betrayed him. The detective's report provides him with invaluable ammunition: an inappropriate relationship between Miranda and a married client, alleged financial improprieties at Connor's company, and a serious alcohol problem hidden behind the perfect social media image of Diane, another friend who sides with Valerie. Second, Ethan began to secretly restructure his financial arrangements. He consulted with one of Boston's top divorce attorneys to learn how to maximize the protection of his assets while still being legal. While he cannot hide or transfer property that would be considered fraudulent by the court, he can rearrange certain investments and asset distributions through legal channels. Third, and most importantly, he began to formulate a plan against Raymond. Through his research, Ethan learns that Raymond's photography business, though seemingly glamorous, is actually facing financial difficulties. His recent acquisition of a teaching position at the Art Institute of Boston is a much-needed financial boost, not a romantic manifestation of his commitment to Valerie's settlement. What's more, some of Raymond's well-known work is suspected of using other photographers' creative ideas without permission, something that, if revealed, would be devastating to his professional reputation. Finally, Ethan began to rebuild his social circle and support system. He reconnected with old friends who had become estranged due to busy families, participated in the activities of the Society of Architects, and even began volunteering at community centers to teach young people about basic structural design. These activities not only helped him regain social support, but also allowed him to project a positive, responsible father image in the eyes of the outside world, which will be crucial in possible future custody battles. Behind all this planning, what sustains Ethan is a deep love for Sophie and a desire for justice. Not only does he want to avenge himself, but he wants to protect his daughter from this adult game. His vengeance will be cool and precise. As with every building he designs, every step carefully calculated, every detail with a reason for being there. A month later, while Valerie and Raymond are reveling in their new lives and thinking they've won, Ethan's counterattack officially begins. Betrayers quickly learn that some people aren't worth pissing off, and Ethan Prescott is definitely one of them. As a steady fall rain blanketed the streets of Boston, Ethan sat in his study with a successfully sent email displayed on his screen. The first step had been taken. A carefully edited set of photographs and transcripts of conversations were sent to Miranda Fletcher's husband and the Professional Ethics Committee's email address. "From now on, you are the enemy. Be careful," I told every one of them. Ethan whispered softly to himself, a cold gleam in his eyes. "I will destroy all of you one by one, but I leave the best revenge for cheating wives." Fall in Boston began with an unexpected storm. Miranda Fletcher walked into her counseling clinic in Back Bay with no expectation of the disaster that awaited her. The receptionist's assistant's face held an unusual amount of tension as she handed her a letter. "This was delivered this morning. It says urgent and private," the assistant whispered. Inside the envelope was an elaborate folder containing intimate photographs of her with married client James Wilson, as well as a record of ambiguous text messages between them. What shocked her even more was that the same information had been sent anonymously to the Ethics Committee and her husband. Miranda's hand trembled as she picked up the phone and dialed Ethan's number. It rang for a long time and eventually went to voicemail. She tried to contact Valerie, but again there was no answer. Her cell phone suddenly vibrated with a text message. "Betrayal has its price, Miranda. You taught me that." It was unsigned, but Miranda knew who it was from. She thought back to that conversation with Ethan at the cafe a few weeks ago, the icy glint in his eye. She had ignored the warning sign then, and now it was too late to regret it. Meanwhile, across town, Connor Davis is facing a similar nightmare. His company is being investigated for evidence of financial impropriety provided by an anonymous whistleblower. The evidence points directly to tax problems he has covered up over the past 3 years, and while the amount is small, it is enough to cause him serious legal trouble and a career crisis. Over the next week, everyone who had ever betrayed or hurt Ethan received something similar in return. Not all retaliation involves blowing the whistle or whistleblowing. Some is more subtle, such as helping a career rival, sabotaging an important social relationship, or using private information to create a dilemma at a critical time. These actions were all carried out in a lawful manner, leaving no traces that could lead to legal problems. Ethan's attention to detail and knowledge of everyone's weaknesses make his retaliation both precise and effective. What is most disturbing is that all the victims know who the blows came from, but no one can prove it, and no one dares to make public accusations. Ethan maintains the perfect public persona, a single father focused on his work and raising his daughter, a respected professional in his community. Revenge against a betrayed friend is only a prelude. The real battleground is in the courtroom, in public opinion, and in the heart of our daughter Sophie. And Ethan is ready for bigger plans. Raymond Carver's career has been steadily on the rise for the past decade. His photography has earned him an international reputation, and his faculty position is a hot topic in the Boston art scene. The relationship with Valerie seems to have given him new creative inspiration, and he is preparing a major new exhibition that will further cement his place in the art world. But the gears of fate have begun to turn. First, there were the little things. Several of his photography lectures were inexplicably canceled. Some long-standing galleries suddenly became difficult to contact, and several important art sponsors began to have misgivings about his new projects. Then came the more obvious blows. A critical review in a leading art magazine questioning the originality of his recent work. Several young photographers suggesting on social media that he had stolen their ideas, and a long-running rumor about the authenticity of his early work suddenly resurfacing, this time with more so-called evidence. The deadliest blow came from the Art Institute of Boston. 2 weeks before the start of the semester, Raymond was notified that, due to new questions about his professional reputation, the college had decided to hold off on his faculty appointment until the matter was cleared up. This means not only reputational damage, but also a sudden interruption of financial resources. It's not that Raymond isn't good at handling crises. Years of international work have accustomed him to challenges. But this time the attack was so comprehensive, so coordinated, as if an invisible hand was precisely manipulating everything. When he begins to suspect that it might have something to do with Ethan, Valerie laughs at the idea. "Ethan, he's not that kind of guy," she said from their makeshift apartment in the South End, contempt in her voice. "He's too rational and cautious. He'll fight through his lawyers and the courts, not this backroom maneuvering." "And how do you explain all this?" Raymond asked anxiously, combing his fingers through his dark hair that had begun to silver. This can't be a coincidence. The timing of these things is so perfect, it's almost like… Like what? A conspiracy? Valerie laughed, but the laughter lacked any real joy. You think too highly of yourself, Raymond. Sometimes bad things just happen. But as the pressure mounts, Raymond begins to show a side of Valerie that she's never seen before. The romantic, passionate artist is gradually replaced by an irritable, self-doubting man. He begins to question Valerie's decision, suggesting that her betrayal of her husband demonstrates her unreliability. If you can betray a man who has loved you for 10 years so easily, what makes me believe that you won't do the same to me one day? Raymond questioned coldly during a heated argument. Valerie was stung by the words. She left Ethan to pursue her love with Raymond, and now that love is crumbling before her eyes. Worse, she begins to question her choices not because of guilt over Ethan, but because of fear of the future. Meanwhile, Ethan's life seems to be going in the opposite direction. He gains leadership of important projects at work. His social circle expands as new friends replace the betrayers, and his relationship with Sophie grows stronger than ever. Girls begin to prefer time with their fathers and often find excuses to shorten their time with their mothers. The contrast did not escape Valerie's notice. She began to question her decision, but pride stopped her from admitting her mistake. Instead, she turns her frustration into resentment toward Ethan, convinced that he must somehow be secretly manipulating everything. The first court hearing in the divorce proceedings became the turning point. Valerie and her attorney walked into the courtroom confident that the judge would uphold her request for primary custody and equitable property division. What awaited her, however, was an entirely different scenario. Ethan's attorney presented extensive evidence that Valerie's infidelity caused emotional harm to Sophie. Expert witnesses noted that Sophie demonstrated greater emotional stability and academic progress when she was with her father, and testimony from community members demonstrated Ethan's responsibility and dedication as a father. Most shockingly, the court was presented with a series of drawings from Sophie's art teacher that clearly conveyed the girl's unease with her mother's new relationship and her attachment to her father. Based on the evidence at hand and taking into account the best interests of the child, the court is tentatively inclined to award primary custody to the father, with reasonable visitation rights to the mother. The judge announced. Valerie felt a wave of vertigo. It was the exact opposite of what she had expected. She turned to Ethan, expecting to see smugness or vengeful pleasure on his face, but his expression was calm and serious, as if this was just another engineering problem that needed to be solved. After the hearing, Valerie questioned why her attorney was ill-prepared. The lawyer looked equally confused. "We are fully prepared," the lawyer argued. "The problem is not our strategy, but the fact that the other side seems to anticipate our every move. They have targeted evidence, precise witnesses, perfect timing." As she left the courthouse, Valerie was stopped by several reporters, something that was not expected. Divorce cases usually do not attract media attention unless they involve public figures or special circumstances. "Ms. Prescott, what do you think of the judge's interim ruling?" One reporter asked. "Do you believe that your affair has negatively impacted your daughter?" Another reporter followed up with a question. Valerie looks at the reporters in horror, not understanding why they are here. Her attorney quickly intervened and escorted her to her car. "What's going on?" Valerie questioned her attorney in the car. "Why are there reporters? Who informed them?" The lawyer shook his head, equally confused. "I don't know, but that doesn't help our case. Media coverage affects public opinion and indirectly influences the judge's final decision." Upon returning to the apartment, Valerie finds Raymond hastily packing. "What happened?" she asked, still distracted by the blowback from the courtroom. "I have to go away for a while," Raymond said briefly, tucking a couple of shirts into his travel bag. "What? Why? Now is when I need you the most." Raymond stopped moving and turned to her, a mixture of anger and fear shining in his eyes. "Did you see the news? The Art Institute officially canceled my teaching position. To make matters worse, Aperture magazine has just published a lengthy article analyzing in detail what I call creative plagiarism. I need to go to New York and personally negotiate with the magazine's editor to try to save my career. But my hearing custody of Sophie. I couldn't care less about that right now." Raymond raised his voice. "I'm losing everything, Valerie. my reputation, my career, my future. If I don't fix these problems soon I won't be able to support myself, let alone you and Sophie. Valerie felt a chill run down her spine. At a time when she needed support the most, Raymond chose to prioritize his own crisis. It's a stark contrast to the future he once promised they'd create a new home for Sophie together. "So you're going to leave me to face this alone?" she asked in a low voice. Raymond sighed, as if suddenly realizing what he had said. He came over and hugged her gently. "It's only temporary, honey. I'll be back as soon as I can. We'll work through these issues together, I promise." But his eyes weren't looking directly at her, and his promise sounded hollow and distant. In the days following Raymond's departure, Valerie began to notice changes around her. Friends gradually distanced themselves from her, with fewer and fewer phone calls and texts. She tries to contact Miranda for emotional support, but the response is cold and brief. "I've been so busy lately. I'm sorry I couldn't meet up for a chat." This is Miranda's standard answer. Work at Novatech has also taken a subtle turn. Coworkers became conservative and supervisors began to question her decision-making and job performance. During an important client meeting, a new product launch that she was supposed to lead was turned over to a less senior team member. "It's just a temporary arrangement," her supervisor explained. "Given your recent personal circumstances, we thought it would be good for you to take some of the pressure off." But Valerie knows the truth. She's being marginalized. Her career, once the centerpiece of her identity and self-esteem, is quietly disintegrating. What hurt her most was Sophie's estrangement. The girl became silent during her time with her, often asking when she could return to her father. She refused to have any contact with Raymond, even by video phone. "I don't like him," Sophie said bluntly at one dinner. "He breaks Dad's heart and makes you different." Valerie tries to explain the complexities of the adult world, but 9-year-old Sophie sees only the simple truth. Her family has been destroyed, and she thinks it's her mother and Raymond's fault. Meanwhile, Ethan's life seems to be getting better. Through Sophie, Valerie learns that he's received a major promotion at the firm, that he's begun dating a female architect, and that he and Sophie are planning a summer trip to Europe. Each of these messages was like a pinprick in her heart. Raymond's trip to New York was extended by a week, then 2 weeks, and eventually a month. Their calls were getting shorter and shorter, their content more and more empty. Valerie began to wonder if he really planned to come back. On a cold winter night, her suspicions were confirmed. Raymond told her via video call that he had accepted an offer for an international photography project that would require him to work in South America for at least 6 months. "This is a key opportunity in my career, Valerie. It's all over in Boston," he said, his voice apologetic but determined. "My reputation was ruined, I lost my teaching position, and even the gallery stopped taking my calls. I need this chance to start over. What about me? What about Sophie? What about our plan?" Valerie questioned, tears gathering in her eyes. Raymond was silent for a moment, then said softly, "We both know it won't work, Valerie. We are making the wrong choices at the wrong time. Continuing will only make it more painful for everyone involved." "So you just gave up?" Her voice trembled with anger. "When things get hard, you run away?" "I didn't run away. In Raymond's defense, I'm doing what I have to do. I believe you need to reevaluate your options as well. Perhaps, maybe it's not too late to go back and fix your marriage." Valerie couldn't believe his ears. This man she gave up everything for, is now suggesting she go back to her ex-husband. "You know that's not possible," she said coldly. "Ethan would never forgive me even if I wanted to. He hates me. He hates you." Raymond suddenly laughed, but it was bitter. "Valerie, don't you get it? That man doesn't just hate you. He's systematically destroying everything associated with you. My career crisis, your alienated friends, media attention. None of this is a coincidence. It's a calculated retaliation." "What did you say?" "I'm not very good at business and law, but I understand patterns and strategies." Raymond's voice became serious. The coordination and precision of these events point to a clear source. Ethan is behind everything, destroying our lives and taking everything you hold dear one step at a time. And the scariest part is that he does it all completely legally and flawlessly. After the call ended, Valerie sat in the dark, Raymond's words echoing in her mind. The signs begin to piece together a horrific picture. She is becoming the victim of an elaborate revenge. She suddenly understands Ethan's final plan for revenge, not to hurt her directly, but to strip her, bit by bit, of everything she holds dear, to make her experience the pain of loss as he once did. The next morning, Valerie decides to fight back. She contacted her attorney and asked for an expedited divorce proceeding and a reconsideration of the custody strategy. She wrote a lengthy letter to Novatech executives explaining how her personal predicament would not affect her job performance. She even sent messages of reconciliation to a few estranged friends. But it was too late. She was told by her attorney that the new evidence made her position in the custody battle even more unfavorable. She was informed by Novatech's Human Resources Department that the company was reorganizing its marketing department and that her position would be reevaluated, and friends responded politely and distantly, making it clear that they didn't want to get involved in this mess. Over the next few weeks, Valerie's world continued to fall apart. She lost her job, lost most of her social circle, and Raymond stopped contact altogether. The hardest blow was the court's final ruling that Ethan was granted primary custody of Sophie and that Valerie would have only limited visitation rights, which would also have to be supervised. When she learns the news, Valerie breaks down. She sent Ethan a desperate text. "You win. You ruined everything for me. Satisfied now?" To her surprise, Ethan replied, "It's not about winning or losing, Valerie. It's about choices and consequences. You chose betrayal, and now you face the consequences of that betrayal." This brief reply suddenly brings Valerie to the harsh truth. Ethan's revenge is so effective not only because of his careful planning, but also because she did do wrong. She betrayed her marriage vows and hurt the person who loved her most, for someone who ultimately betrayed her as well. One rainy night, while she's alone in her nearly empty apartment packing her final belongings, she can no longer afford the rent on the place and has to move to a smaller place. One of Sophie's photographs falls out of the book. It was taken on their family vacation in Maine last summer, with the trio standing in front of a lighthouse with big smiles and the endless ocean behind them. Looking at this photo, Valerie finally realized that she had lost not only her husband, daughter, job, or friends, but a whole life, a life she once had but didn't appreciate. When spring comes, Boston's cherry blossoms are in full bloom, and the city is draped in the colors of new life. On a park bench, Valerie sits quietly, waiting for a supervised visit with Sophie. The experiences of the past 6 months had left a visible mark on her. She looked much older than she really was and had lost the old sparkle in her eyes. She now has an entry-level position at a small PR firm that pays far less than before, but it's the only job she could find. She lives in a small apartment on the edge of the city, far from the once familiar luxury neighborhood. Raymond had completely disappeared from her life. Occasionally, she would see his new project in South America on social media, but they had no further contact. Her social circle narrowed to a few new coworkers and 1 or 2 old friends who were willing to stay in touch. Valerie's heart races as Sophie walks in accompanied by her social worker. Despite the difficult circumstances, she does her best to maintain a positive attitude and cherish every moment with her daughter. "Mom," Sophie ran over and hugged her, a simple gesture that sent a wave of warmth through Valerie. "Honey, I missed you," Valerie said softly, stroking her daughter's hair. "How was school? How's your science project going?" Their conversation carefully avoided sensitive topics: Ethan, divorce, Raymond. But even so, Valerie could sense her daughter's reservations and distance. Sophie has begun to build a life that doesn't include her mother. When the visitation ended, Sophie hesitated, then said, "Dad said I could come see you a couple more times this summer if I wanted to." This small compromise gives Valerie a glimmer of hope. Perhaps, in time, the wounds will heal and she will be able to regain her daughter's trust. Walking toward their respective vehicles, Valerie saw Ethan from a distance. He's standing at the edge of the parking lot, waiting to pick Sophie up. Their eyes met briefly, and there was no anger, no triumph, only a complicated knowledge that they had once loved each other, that they had once built a family, and now everything was different. In that moment, Valerie finally truly understood the cost of betrayal. It is not the loss of material wealth or social status, but the loss of trust, the loss of an intact family, and the loss of a future that could have been built together. It's a lesson she will carry with her forever, a timeless reminder of choices and consequences. As she drives away, with Ethan and Sophie reflected in the rearview mirror, a father-daughter duo walking to their car, Sophie happily recounting something. Ethan listening intently. Valerie can't help but wonder what her life would be like now if she had made a different choice. But there is no answer to that question, only endless regret and a painful truth. There are some mistakes that can never be repaired, some hurts that can never be healed. She had paid the price of betrayal, and that price would stay with her for the rest of her life. That's the end of today's story. For more captivating tales, hit subscribe and never miss an episode.